Good morning. My name is Anthony McCauley and I work for Fujitsu. If I'd have known that DreamWorks were putting some of the presentations together, I might have done a better job on mine, but however, I'll have to provide the entertainment. In relation to the presentation, what it is, it's about Fujitsu and what we've done over the last 2 years in bringing research and development here to Ireland. So it was going from a standing start, and it's a lot of work to try and cram it into 15 minutes, but I'm always available if people want to talk to me. If you're getting started with a collaboration, by all means give me a call, or if you want to sit down and talk. If you're at the same stage, I'm more than willing to do that. Okay, so Fujitsu, who are Fujitsu? Well, Fujitsu are based obviously in Japan. We've over 175,000 employees worldwide in 70 countries. We invest in R&D each year about 2.4 billion. And in Ireland, we have about 350 employees. We work across a number of different sectors, providing infrastructure services, customer services, consulting services, and applications. Indeed, we're said to touch the lives of almost 99% of Irish people through the services that we provide. We put in place the penalty point system. I'm waiting for the gasp. we provide the system for the driving licenses, and we manage the IT for the Criminal Courts of Justice and for the Irish Court Service here in Ireland. And if you have a Tesco mobile phone, well then that's pretty much Fujitsu as well. And that's, I say that, number one, to keep my CEO happy, but number two, because that was important in terms of what we were doing in relation to research and development and collaboration. We wanted to leverage those skills to give the research that we undertook a very commercial focus. And therefore, when we were looking at the collaboration that we wanted to have, we were looking at how we would leverage those expertise. Fujitsu Laboratories is the research wing of Fujitsu. They're based in Tokyo. There's 1,500 researchers. There's 4 laboratories around the world. The main laboratory is in Tokyo itself. There's about 1,300 researchers there. In addition to that, we have laboratories in China, Singapore, the US, and the European headquarters is Fujitsu Laboratories Europe, which is based in Hayes in Middlesex. And in addition to that, they obviously have a number of collaborations with universities and research groups. The Ivy League universities, the Russell Group universities, and the institutes like the Fraunhofer Institute and the Park Institute. So in relation to the collaboration that we were undertaking, what we wanted to do is to leverage that expertise to offer that as an open door to the research groups that we were sitting with, as an opportunity for them to sit with labs and have an opportunity to work with these other research groups as well. So there was something there for the research groups, as well as there was something there for Fujitsu in terms of establishing a capability here in Ireland. When we sat down and we thought about bringing research and development to Ireland, from a Fujitsu Ireland perspective, there were particular motivations. We wanted to use the research and development to open new markets. Markets that we weren't in today. How could we use this research and development to enter those markets? One of the other items that we looked at was the ability for Ireland to become a test bed for the research. We talked, I think Yvonne was talking about cultural differences between researchers. Well, you also have cultural differences obviously between Asia and between Western markets here. And what we wanted to see was, how could Ireland become a test bed for the research coming out of Japan, or new research that we undertook here in Ireland that we could then westernise and sell to a global market, which is some of the challenges that Japan have at the moment, which is entering those markets. And obviously, Fujitsu wanted to become a leader in the new smart economy as it was then. But in addition to that, gain insights into research and development that's going on in Fujitsu itself. A lot of research and development was going on there, and we didn't access that, or we didn't see that, and we couldn't leverage the potential of that because we didn't have an R&D capability here in Ireland. In terms of Fujitsu Laboratories, what they wanted was access to new perspectives on their own research, but critically was to work with world-class researchers, people who were outstanding in their field and who were unique in the research that they were doing. And we have that. The good news is that we have that in Ireland. We have Stefan Decker part of Derry down in Galway. We have Ian Robertson, who is here he works in Trinity and he's part of the Trill Institute. Actually, when we were one of their sessions, they were saying, you know, Ian Robertson is published in Nature, and I immediately got upset because I said, good God, he's not a nudist. But apparently, if you're published in Nature, it is the thing to be. And you have the unique synergy then of, you know, getting Fujitsu Lab sitting down with these groups and developing something very new. So we wanted to make sure that there was something in it for Fujitsu Ireland, but there also had to be something in it for Fujitsu Laboratories. In terms of choosing the research partner, how did we go about it? Well, one of the first things that we did here in Fujitsu Ireland was we appointed a person, Anthony, me, to lead up the research and to be that single point of contact for the research groups as well as for the semi-states into Fujitsu. We sat down and we very clearly defined what the business drivers would be for selecting the research group that we went with. And that was extremely important because we wanted to make sure that it reinforced the skills and expertise that we had in our business so that we could leverage that research and that we could then commercialize it. Particularly important to you in terms of if you're starting a collaboration is looking at the Research Prioritisation Steering Group, which is the document now that outlines the 14 different prioritisation areas. And the government will be looking very kindly on people that are doing research in those areas because they're the areas that are going to be funding. We decided that we wanted a collaboration, which meant bringing researchers from Fujitsu Laboratories, getting researchers from the groups here in Ireland, hiring researchers as well in Ireland, and getting them in a room and working together. We felt that that was the best way in order to get the outcome that we wanted. You may want contracted research, which would be a different model, but a lot of the things I'm going to talk about today would apply there equally as well. And then we developed a set of selection criteria for selecting those research groups so that we could sit down and based on the portfolio of research that of the different research groups that we had, we could identify which of the groups most closely aligned with what we wanted to do and what Fujitsu Laboratories wanted to do. One of the most important things that we done was we identified a single point of contact within the different agencies that we were going to work with. That single point of contact for us was within the CITA. Bronwyn Gallagher was the person who we were working with in IDA, and she's been fantastic. And I think it's one of the most important things that you can have is to identify that relationship, whether it's someone with Enterprise Ireland or whether it's with IDA or whether it's Science Foundation Ireland, but you want that single person who's going to then drag in all the other people that you're going to need to meet, because you're going to need to meet a lot of different people. There's going to be a lot of discussion about funding and grants, and that person will be your lightning rod into all that. So it's very important that that is someone you can work with and that you choose that person carefully. We then identified an expert group, and we put together people from ISIN. Michael Martin was there. We had people from Science Foundation Ireland, from IDA, and we brought in academics as well who could give us an idea of how the research would be important to researchers, because they want to get something out of it as well. They want to be able to publish, and they want to be able to stand alongside with world-class researchers within Fujitsu Laboratories as well. So we got advice on what it is that's important to the research community as well as to the commercials, and we looked at things from a top-down as well as from a bottom-up. Obviously, Science Foundation Ireland and IDA and Enterprise Ireland, they want you to work with these research groups. And, I mean, many of them are fantastic. But what you want is you want a bottom-up view as well, and that's what Michael Martin was able to give to us. He was on the ground, and he was working with the research groups, and he knew what the best fit would be in terms of what we wanted to do and what those research groups could do as well. So he provided valuable information from the bottom up, as well as Science Foundation telling us what the broad portfolio of research that was out there. And then attend events like this one. See the research groups in action, see them presenting, and it'll give you an indication of the skills and expertise that they have and how commercially astute they are and all the other things that will be important to you in terms of what those research groups can provide. In terms of working with academia, from our perspective, we were impressed when we seen a group that had a large number of researchers, that was mature, that had an international flavour, that it wasn't solely an Irish group, that there were people there from America, there were people from Europe, there were people from Asia, because that was very encouraging for Fujitsu Laboratories. They wanted to see that the research groups were bringing in different perspectives from different international backgrounds. So that was impressive. And the engagement model, you'll know instantly how mature that group is when you sit down and you say, how do you engage with industry? And then there's been a lot of talk this morning about intellectual property. So the strength of the intellectual property framework that they have. If you sit down and you say, look, what framework have you got for IP? And they say, what's IP? Okay, you're in trouble. But that's okay as well. If the research group is there and it's something you want to do, then you'll have maybe your people or other people that you can bring in to help them develop that model. But in terms of what we were looking at, we found that if they tick those boxes, and there are a lot of research groups here, then we're in business. You have to accept that academia and industry have different strengths. You're trying to merge the innovation of researchers with the commercial reality of industry. And in terms of doing that, you've got to accept that they want to do something with the research, and that's, as I've said, is to publish it. But they also want to get international recognition for what they do. And what you want to do is you want to hopefully get to an end game where you can get a prototype and you can commercialize that and you can start selling service around it. Very important to me was sitting down with the researchers from Fujitsu Laboratories and saying, okay, look, this is the research program that we want to do. What should it look like? What are the attributes, what are the requirements of that research when I sit down with the research groups here in Ireland? And it was great that not only did they give me all that advice, they came and they sat here. Now, that was very important, and it showed how far Ireland have come in the last 5 years in terms of research and development. We've created these research institutes. You have like Clarity, like Trill, like Derry, like Cleek, like the Complex Adaptive Systems Laboratory. So you now have these large research clusters that are coming together. There are even the newer clusters that are coming together around the new prioritisation areas. So that's very encouraging to see that. But what you want to do is you want to try and align what you're doing as a research with as a business with what the researchers are doing as well. So the other thing is assess their project planning capability. Because as you develop your research and development project, you're going to sit down with researchers and you're going to say, okay, now, how are we going to plan this? And planning, by and large, is not what they're there to do. It's not their strength, but that's more an industry strength. So you have to sit with them, and you have to get them together, and you have to plan it, and you have to be very clear on what you're going to develop over those 3 years. I've sat in rooms where researchers, both from Fujitsu and from the research groups here in Ireland, would have a completely different view of what I had in terms of what we decided. So you have to have it, if it's written down, and it's planned, and it's structured, well then everybody knows exactly what the research project is going to deliver. Design the project that meets, as I said, meets both requirements, both the commercial and the academic. And be patient, because groundbreaking research, it does take time. And from an industry background, we want to try and get there yesterday. And from a research background, that's not always possible. And you can see it, as they're developing a research project and developing research, they're building that, a new solution, there's new thinking, and you just have to accept that that takes time. In terms of the funding options, I would say clearly know your budget within a boundary and stick to that budget. Because that will then feed into all the other things that you're going to be able to do in terms of the resources. And also be aware that in terms of the universities and dealing with resources there are going to be additional overheads. You'll probably have the Science Foundation Ireland list of the different grades and the salaries, but then on top of that there's universities overheads, and there's overheads for pensions and PRS and all the rest of it. So be very clear on what the costs are, both from a university perspective, but you'll know your costs from an industry perspective. Understand the different grants and allowances. The ISIN website is a fantastic resource around the different grants, but grants, the tax credit in particular, can be a real nightmare, and you're probably better off getting expertise in relation to the tax credit. But there are other avenues of funding, like the Marie Curie funding or the FP7. So know all the different funding options that are available, because they can really reduce the cost of the research to you. as I said, get some expert advice. But as well, in addition to that, there are some grants around actually writing the proposals themselves, which can again reduce the cost. So any cost that obviously is reducing it for you means you can hire more researchers and you can put more money into the research itself. And then finally, hiring researchers from abroad, one of the key institutes now is the Irish Universities Association. I don't know how many people know about them, but they're a fantastic little organisation. And in terms of bringing researchers here, hosting agreements that are in place, in terms of bringing researchers here much quicker. If anybody's gone through the process of trying to bring researchers from abroad here into Ireland, you'll know that it can be taking an awful long time. So the hosting agreements, but sit down with Conor O'Carroll over there, they provide a fantastic service. In terms of the impact, now we've only started our research back in August. It was announced, one of the research collaborations was announced back in August. But we're already seeing an impact in terms of how we operate as a business. We're identifying new trends and new challenges in the area that we've identified in terms of the research, and that's impacting not just on the Irish business, but we've also got now interest from our UK business, and we're helping them to plan for 5 and 10 years ahead in terms of not just the research roadmap, but also our corporate offerings and services. It brings new thinking to your own R&D. We're now getting new thinking from research groups that would be seen as world-class here in Ireland, that is now shaping the research and development that's taking place in Fujitsu Laboratories, both in Japan and in Europe. It's obviously opening new markets to us. It's opening new thought processes in terms of those new markets. And it's improving the way we're thinking of what we can do in terms of existing services and how we deliver those services with new technologies. Additionally, depending on the size of the research group, you may have access within those research groups to already near commercial offerings. So in some cases, you may not be waiting for 3 years for your research project to finish. You may have access to solutions that they already have, that they're looking for somebody to get to a commercial solution. And the biggest advantage that I've seen so far is that access to that family of experts. You have the access to the expertise within the research group, but you also have access to a family of experts that they're talking to get new insights in terms of not just research, but where business is going and where technology is going. So they're the main points in relation to setting it up, dealing with academia and the impact it can have. And at the end of the day, it's all worth it, because there's the one that we announced back in August, which is the research collaboration with Derry. That's Stefan Decker, the Minister, obviously. That's Regina Moran, and that's the President of Fujitsu Laboratories to her right, and obviously the Japanese ambassador. Okay? So hopefully you all start a research collaboration. The good news is that things here in Ireland are very good in terms of research, and if I can help in any way, please call me.